I grew up in the 1950s in a regular sort of family, with a mom and a pop and 5 daughters. I'm the youngest. My lessons in democracy began at 2 years old when my parents started family council meetings. We even elected a secretary who kept minutes. When my oldest sister, Nancy, was secretary, she'd add her personal comments, even after Mom told her not to. Annette and Judy were being naughty with their feet in the air. Carol talked crazy for a few minutes. Linda was sitting very prettily with her leg crossed. Then she was more silly and stupid. We voted on raising allowances, sometimes adding a nickel or dime when brownie dues went up. Sometimes voting a proposed raise down when there was no good reason for it. We voted to buy sand for the sandbox and where to go on vacation. Sometimes governance, known as parents, carried out the decision, sometimes not. In spite of Mom's effort searching for sand down in some questionable area of Richmond, we never did get sand for the sandbox. But we each had a voice. Mom even set up a suggestion box in the back hall by the phone. Although I couldn't write or read for the first few years, and I'm sure my parents knew each daughter's handwriting, it felt special to have a place where we could submit ideas anonymously. With 5 daughters within 9 years of each other, we often had sick weeks, not days. Once, as the stomach flu worked its way through the family, I began to feel queasy. As Mom and I stood by my bed that night, it hit. With no time to run to the bathroom, Mom looked down at the newly washed throw rug, held out her cupped hands, and let me puke. Unfortunately, what came out was not a nice, delicate handful of vomit. Instead, the gray liquid spewed forth, overflowed her cupped hands, then spread across the no longer clean throw rug and onto the wooden floor. I would have just let me puke on the rug. Mom was not afraid of anything. She'd grown up on a farm with 4 brothers. While she did the things that most mothers did in the 50s, cleaned the house, cooked the meals, made our dresses, and took care of our home, she also did the annual taxes, yard work, plumbing, and loved to fish, camp, and sleep out under the stars. When we camped in national forests and parks, we all slept outside. We had one heavy canvas tent, just big enough for all 7 of us to keep our clothes in, each in our designated spot. We kept our clothes in cardboard boxes in lieu of suitcases, with our underwear and socks packed in odd-looking gray cloth organizers Mom had made. While Dad was the one who set up the tent, with our help, of course, it was Mom, not Dad, who kept a wooden spoon and metal bucket lid at the head of her sleeping bag to scare away any bears that might wander through in the night. Although the youngest of 5 daughters, I was the first to want to learn to cook. I talked Mom into helping me bake a cake and got to use the electric beater for the first time. After adding the eggs and oil to the box mix and greasing and flouring the 2 round cake pans, I poured in the batter. Up to that point, all was fine. Then it came time to put the pans in the oven. When you're little, it's a long, hot, scary reach across the open door to the metal racks. Afraid I would get burned, I let go too soon. The pan slipped off the rack and flipped, spilling the batter onto the floor. Mom didn't yell. She didn't tell me I was a failure. She just walked over to the counter, picked up the rubber scraper I had used, quietly scraped the batter off the floor and back into the pans, then set them in the oven. 30 minutes later, the cake was done. After waiting for it to cool, Mom helped as I made the frosting and iced it. At the end of dinner, she cut the cake, passed a piece to each person, ate one herself, and never mentioned the batter having spent time on the kitchen floor. So what did I learn from my mother? We all have a voice and a vote. Use it. Gender roles don't matter. Follow your dream. Don't be afraid of bears in the woods. Camp there anyway. Don't cry over spilled cake batter. Slop it up and bake it. But don't tell anyone. As for holding out your hands for vomit, I realized years later, watching my sisters and then my nieces with their own children, that holding out your hands for anything your child gives you, gum, vomit, whatever, is a mom thing. Having never had kids of my own, I never quite got that one. I took Mom's lessons to heart. I chose wildlife biology as my career in the early 1970s, when it was still a man's field. I studied grizzly bears for 2 seasons in Yellowstone. I wallowed in mud and flood in Galapagos following giant tortoises. I am living my dream. Thanks, Mom.